Meeting to order. And I guess we need to take, I guess I need to get into board docs, don't I, to keep myself on track.
Yeah, it'd probably help.
Give me a minute. Sorry. You know what, Ron, why don't you go ahead and do it? Do you mind, since you've got everything there?
Okay,
I don't have my split screen going.
okay. The meeting was just called to order and there was a roll call.
Yeah, we did a roll call.
Okay. So I think the first matter is to approve the agenda.
Yes.
And do we hear a motion?
Yeah, this is Michael. I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Michael. Second.
Joycelyn, second.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any negatives?
Ron, just as a matter of point, Phil's been asking us to get abstentions too, just to make sure.
Okay. We heard no negatives, any abstentions? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. So next is the consent agenda. Take a second just to look at that. So we're open for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
This is Joycelyn, so moved.
Did you? Okay, thank you, Joyce. And second?
Michael, I second it.
Thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any negatives, nay? And anybody abstaining from vote? Hearing none, we're passed. Next matter is approval of the minutes from the last.
No, that's all managed within consent agenda. So
Okay.
Next item is preliminary business.
Preliminary business. We have two listed awards and recognitions and any visitor comments. So
I'm unaware of any awards or recognitions. And Teresa, did we have any visitor comments?
Any comments?
none. Next is the financial reports.
Right. And so because we changed the date of the meeting, Quan had an out-of-town obligation, and I told him I would do my best to fill in for him. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll make the finance report in his stead. So if we go to the next slide, please. If we look at the financial highlights for January, some pretty good news here. As you can tell from our total tax revenue received right now is $52.8 million. That's about 3% higher than this time last year. And the total and what we actually received in terms of revenue this last month is $27.9 million, which is, again, not unusual. It's a large amount of our revenue comes in every December, January, and February. So in terms of the real property taxes, in 2020 so far, we're about $500,000 to the good in Jackson County, in Clay County. We are about $600,000 ahead in Jackson County and $300,000 ahead in Platte County. So all good news across the board in terms of revenues. And actually, we are a little behind in our projections for Jackson County, but it can almost be completely accounted for by the clawback that we had. And so if we had the money from the clawback, we'd be almost right on target. So if we go to the next slide, please. This is our review of the big buckets, the big general categories. So in terms of payroll and benefits, it's $17.4 million, or about 54% of the budget. Of course, if we were spending in equal amounts, That would actually be 58% of the budget. So we're just a little bit behind in terms of expenditures, which is what we've been trying to accomplish. Library materials, 5.8 million or 51%. Again, a little bit behind. Some of this is, as Susan will attest, is that the publishers just haven't been coming out with as many items as we expected them to due to the pandemic. That's liable to get caught up pretty soon, but there's just not as many books to buy. Simply, they're just not coming out. But we are buying what is out there. And then in terms of library operations, $4.2 million or 41% of our budget. That's the one that we've really been working on a lot in terms of making sure that we're not overspending due to the pandemic. And some of the areas that we're seeing the biggest or the lesser amount of expenditures, which is affecting that line, is the live programming, which of course we're not doing any live programming in our branches. The continuing education and conference is much lower than normal. And then of course, travel is also much lower than normal. So those are the three lines that are really affecting that and making a difference there. If we go to the next slide, this is our summary of our debt service. As you can just basically shows our beginning balance and our payments and our disbursements and our ending balance and what's left for us to pay. And just as an FYI, we have made our annual debt payment of $6.5 million already for this year. So we are right on target with what we're supposed to be doing in terms of our debt service. Go to the next slide. This is our capital project fund summary, and capital project fund. We have the work that's going on the Woodneath House, and actually, there's going to be a really good report on that at the building committee next week, and we'll show that to the board at the following meeting. But you can see there's really only a very small amount left for us in terms of the capital project there. We're still holding those two lines for the Woodneath sign and collaboration room. Reading Rocket, of course, and then the larger capital plan, which you can see that, we're of course starting to spend down there, which makes sense because we're getting toward the end of the capital project, capital improvement project. If we go to the next slide, our grant and gift fund. This is the summary of all the different grants and gifts that we've been working on. See, our beginning balance is about $221,000. Cash in this year so far is 164,000, but cash out is 275,000. No need to get alarmed though, because remember, this grant and gift fund does straddle multiple years. And so everything is still on track in terms of where we should be there. So, and if we go to the next slide is our health insurance fund. And with our health insurance fund, so far our cash in and cash out situation is looking really well. And if you look at our total fund balance at the end, it's $1.5 million. Now our policy is that we're required to keep a fund balance ceiling of $1.3 million. And we work to keep this balance well funded due to the pandemic. If our experience holds, and staff is watching this very closely because we are above our ceiling. But if this experience holds, then staff will come in with a recommendation to the personnel committee to do something like smoothing our premium amounts for our staff or adjusting the plan design by decreasing the out-of-pocket maximum or the deductible or something like that. Because there's no reason for us to keep socking money away into our savings account, particularly if we're over our ceiling amount. So point is, we know we're above. We thought it was smart to be above because we're in a global pandemic, but we are watching it and we will have a solution for that as we come toward the end of the year. So that concludes my impression of Quan. In terms of being the finance report. Is there any questions I can answer in terms of our current financial position? I've stunned them all.
Yeah, so just curious, if the actuaries determine there's supposed to be an adjustment,
Yeah.
when typically, do you get the actuaries report? And then when would that decision be made to adjust the employee's paycheck?
It actually, that we look at that quarterly, where we're always looking at it, but we actually run that insured and unencumbered amount, and the actuarial occurs at the in the fall, I believe, and then we put that together at the end of the calendar year where we'd make our plan design change. So.
And is there any kind of like a circuit breaker in case the required contribution gets kind of high?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, I mean, there's the reinsurance that occurs so that if claims get to a certain amount, then we start getting the reinsurance so that we don't necessarily address that. But I mean, the whole reason for having this fund is so that we don't come into a situation where all of a sudden we have to ask our staff to,
A fortune, yeah.
increase their premiums by $300 a month or something.
Sure.
Like that. So.
Thank you. No questions? So let's go on to unfinished business or old business. Any committee reports?
Yeah, there should be a building committee report. I think Brent is ready
Brent?
for that.
Good to be with everybody. This is Brent Schonemeyer, Chair of the Building Committee. Quick reminder, we have a building committee meeting this coming Thursday. Details we'll get to you. It's online. If somebody could advance to the next slide. Appreciate for my building committee members who are on the call today. And if I fail to fully represent the discussions that we had, please chime in and help out. One of our properties, we have 3 library branches in Lee Summit. Our oldest one it's called Lee Summit, and we have a small property swap that we need to undertake. And if somebody could go to the next slide, I'll give you my version of it all. This was actually, it seems like a small thing. We're swapping that which is in, I'll call it fuchsia, for that which is in green. And it took us a while to engage the shopping center owner really around this. This was advantageous to us and advantageous to the owner of the mall. There is a real estate contract that's in our materials. It involves no financial transactions. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. And if I misstated, please somebody say otherwise. Understand is that we need to approve this because it helps with our architects in citing the library and undertaking that work. So our board attorney is on the call with us. He's reviewed the real estate contract. It's a standard real estate contract, and I would make a motion from the building committee that we approve this land transaction as described in detail in the agreement.
This actually comes as a recommendation, no second required, but we can do we can go to discussion if that's the pleasure of the chair.
Sounds good.
If there's no questions, then I would encourage the chair to call for a vote and we can move on to the next item.
The motion is, could you restate that, please?
Yeah, the motion, I'll do that. It's a recommendation to the full board to authorize staff to execute the contract to swap property at the Lee Summit Shopping Center. And so the contract itself is in board docs, also in the packet. As Brent has suggested, it is a zero sum. It's just us trading this property for that property. There are some provisions within the contract, including things like that the shopping center guarantees that we have egress and access to the drive lanes, that they will maintain the drive lanes to our level of recommendation, and if not, then we'll maintain them and charge them back. There also is a provision in there about sight lines. If they decide that they want to put in something like a drive-up ATM or a drive-up coffee hut or something like that there, they have to make sure that they don't obscure our building, and we have to be able to approve that. All of that is a provision of the contract, and they have agreed to that. So,
Good. So that's the motion. Do we have anybody to move that recommendation?
yeah, it came from the committee, so we're good. We're just ready.
Okay, good. Does Brent have the floor still?
We just
Oh, you do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have to call the vote, Rob.
Okay, so I call the vote. All in favor, please signify by aye.
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 Any opposed? Signify by no, nay. Hearing none, any abstaining? Motion carries.
Thank you.
The next item is a kind of a visual update on 3 projects. And if the staff will put it up on the screen, I will let Steve Potter describe what we have.
So we'll just go to the next slide, please. And so this is the building committee dashboard as of 2021, January 2021. So you can see we're, this is the redesigned dashboard that we showed you last month. And, black means that it's completely done. Green means that it's in some process, and white means yet to do. And so you can see, again, we're continuing to move right along to finish up the capital replacement and improvement project and still staying within our budget limitations. So next slide, please. This is what's the status report. And so if we go to the next slide, what we did last month, and by last month at this point, I think we're talking about December, Parkville branch was recommissioned, which meant we got all the shelves built, got all the stuff in there, and got that ready to go. Colburn Road continued construction and moving along very quickly. And work package 11, Grandview and South Independence continued with their construction. If we go to the next slide, Parkville branch, what we're doing this month, which at this point is actually last month, Parkville branch opened on January the 5th, and South Independence branch had their substantial completion on January the 11th. And so go to the next slide, please. What's coming up says next month, but that's actually this month now. South Independence branch opened. It opened on February the 10th. And then the Grandview branch was substantially complete on the 17th, and they're starting commission work. So staff's back in there, building shelves, putting books back on the shelves, and getting ready to get Grandview open for folks. So I believe if we go to the next slide, we've got some pictures. Yes, we do. So these are pictures of Colburn Road. You can see Colburn Road is beginning to look like a building. It's actually more than beginning to look like a building. It is a building. But you can see that the scrim wall's up. A lot of the finishes are in. Floor's not in, of course. That's one of the last things that you do, but moving along pretty quickly. If we go to the next slide, this is Woodneath. And at Woodneath, it's kind of hard to see because everything's essentially groundwork at this point, but lots of footings and that sort of base work that's going on right now. And of course, there's a lot of start and stop that's going on right now with Woodneath, because there's only so much you can do. When it gets too cold or gets too snowy, you can't do anything. So it's moving along, but moving along a little bit slowly. So the next slide is Grandview, as I believe. Yes, this is Grandview. And so Grandview looks totally different. Looks nothing like it did before. And so what you're seeing in the upper left corner, that's the new exterior, which of course we built out toward Booth Lane. It's actually setting there at what was once a hillside. And as you're on the lower left-hand picture is part of the new entryway and community room. And the right-hand picture is, again, sort of part of the new entryway. And so actually, if you were to look further beyond where that door, where the room and the door is, would be part of that glass that's in the upper left-hand corner. And you can start seeing out from that. So that's what Grandview is like. And
I want to pause there
Yes.
just a minute, Steve,
Yes.
and if we can go back actually to Colburn Road. This
Okay.
is really for the benefit of our new board members. Colburn Road looks like a brand new library because it is a brand new library, but it really reflects the decision to tear down the existing building there because we thought for about the same amount of money that we can construct a newer facility, better operating expenses. And this is what in the library system we call a destination library. And this is where we're locating our business innovation, business incubator services. And maybe Steve can talk about that a little bit more and how this branch will support that.
Yeah, our Square One Small Business Services will be located at Colburn Road. And right now it's actually headquartered out of this building, which works because honestly, 95% of the time, the staff that work here are actually involved in going to businesses and helping them on their site, wherever their site is. But it does kind of make it hard if you're the type of person who does actually want to go and meet with somebody someplace. There wasn't a someplace to meet. And so the idea was to create a space, to create a home and to create a space where people could do things like hold the small business boot camps and not necessarily feel like they were encroaching on anybody because it was their space too. There's going to be a decent amount of co-working space. I mean, space that's going to be just easy. It's true across our library system, but actually really designed a little bit more in mind with the idea of the small business owner who just needs to get away and get out, that they'll be able to do that. And they'll always be able to find staff there as well that can help. The Post Coffee Shop, actually Post has signed a contract to operate a coffee shop in Colburn Road as well as in North Independence. And so both of those will be operating, and of course, caffeine is one of those essential fuels that it comes to entrepreneurs needing. And so that's another thing that's going to be in the Colburn Road branch. And so I'm pretty excited about it. It's about a 35,000 square foot building. It's about 20,000 square foot addition. Not technically an addition because we tore down the 15,000 square foot building, but significant addition to the community, as well as providing this new amenity for the destination where people will be able to come from all over. And part of the reason why we chose Colburn Road was that it is very easy to get to. I mean, with its proximity, easy proximity to I-70, I-435, 470, 291, it is easier to get to than a lot of our buildings. And so that was one of the reasons why we decided to headquarter it there. So hopefully that does the trick.
Thanks for that. And then actually, if we can go to the Woodneath for a second, I'll just do these last two myself.
Sure.
Woodneath is for my fellow board members. Yummy, I owe you some coffee, and we now have a place that we can get together and have coffee. There is not civic space in the Northland. Is a little bit complicated or difficult when we were thinking about it all. So Woodneath is another sort of destination library that has a special use. And so this is a major addition. It sits on about a 33-acre tract. We're in the process of building out walking tours, an amphitheater, and and so this should be a civic center really in the Northland. And it sits adjacent to our modern library that's attached to the Woodneath Historic Home, which is on the National Register of Historic Places. So one can look forward to that. This is similar in design and functionality to the attachment that we did to the Midwest Genealogy Center that's located in Independence. And so this is a major new civic asset. Then the last slide is Grandview. And so Grandview was really an undersized library. And I'm anxious to go out and see Grandview because in some ways it was a underserved community and we had too many people in too small a space. And this is better space and there's more space. And so when I think of a set of 3 different library slides together, going back to Colburn Road, the business incubator, the Woodneath Auditorium, and the Grandview, it's an extraordinary set of projects that in some senses are reflective of this larger capital campaign that we're on. So I just wanted to pause and sort of go through that and share that for those who've not had a chance to visit these particular library sites and understand that they are serving particular communities, but they also in some senses have specialized needs for the entire library system. So thanks for that small indulgence. So.
I mean, that concludes the staff update. It looks like the next agenda item might be the North Oak update.
Let me see if I can do this one, and I'm going to look to Michael to help me a little bit. North Oak is if you can go to the next slide, and actually Michelle will be helpful in this conversation. North Oak is a branch that we're trying to figure out what's the best place to site this. And so we went down a path, what would it be like to relocate it to another property? We looked at some properties. Staff should be complimented for exploring a number of different options. And we came back to the notion that we should just locate where we are, but we needed to relocate in a different fashion. And you'll see some elevations on the next couple of slides. One of the challenges, you can see kind of a diagonal line that runs through the parking lot. We've had water issues at North Oak, and we believe this is a topic of discussion in the building committee on Thursday. We want to hear directly from our architects, is if we site this library on our existing property in this corner, will we be able to mitigate water issues? And so what's a little bit different about this is that most of our libraries are on one level. If you go to the next slide,
We just have the one slide on this one.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But you can still see what you're trying to, if you look up at the very, very top of the
Yeah.
picture, you can see what Brent's trying to talk about.
And so anyway, we have talented architects that can help us figure it out. Actually, we have something a little bit like this down at the Redbridge branch, where it was an old bowling alley. And so it was on slightly different levels, and we were able to make that sort of work. So what we want to let you know is that the building committee will kind of talk through this, because it's really, really important. Prior to the board meeting, there was a significant conversation about the number of projects that we've mudjacked over the years. And we don't want to continue that in the future, because I think we understand more about soil compaction and just better engineering. And so we'll talk about this, and you can expect to see this come back to the board, hopefully at the next board meeting when we are together. I think that's it on North Oak. There's one other little thing I might add. We are exploring Green Valley, and we're discussions about property acquisition. We are in a rented facility in a shopping center, and we want to find a site, acquire land where we can build, and we hope to be able to back to the board in 2 to 3 months with a recommendation really on what land acquisition might be. Understand we really can't embark on a site design for a new branch there. It'd be new construction until we have a site. So we wanted to notify you about that. Just in general, I'm thankful for the building committee members and our staff and our vendors, our architects, and our construction company, because we have really moved in an expeditious fashion, in a thoughtful fashion, through a rather pretty aggressive building schedule. And for that, you can see it. And I had a chance to be in South Independence, and it's just beautiful. In a warm day, I'm going to get out and take a driving tour of seeing some of the other branches. We've done really something significant, and I want to thank the board for its support all along the way. And for the new board members who would like to know more, I'm happy to have a personal or individual conversations to tell you about what we have done to date and what we still have yet to do. So I think that's my report. I would look to any of the other building committee members if there was something else that they might want to add.
Thank you, Brent. The next matter is our librarian report.
Right. So let me dive into this first. Let's start off with the COVID dashboard, if that's available. So what I want to tell you about here is looking at the positive staff tests, which that's the one that's in the upper left-hand corner. What you can see is that we've had a significant decrease. That we had, if you add the blue and the gray bar together, we had 19 cases in November, and then 14 cases in December, and then 10 in January, and then 0 in February. Our total staff tested have been decreasing significantly as well, while our positive test percentage has increased. But much of that, as near as we can tell, is because testing is being used only to confirm the infection now as opposed to the way it was being used earlier. So our community numbers, and by community, I mean our staff numbers, as well as our larger community numbers have been decreasing and decreasing in a good way and staying in the right direction. So if you remember last month, I mentioned to you that we were restoring technology services where people can come into the libraries, use computers, use copy machines, use fax machines, things like that, even come in and use their own personal computers with our Wi-Fi. That has gone very well. We are still employing, obviously gone well and not resulted in any sort of additional infections or positive cases. Just remind everybody, we're still employing an A/B team schedule, and that decreases the chances of our employees infecting each other, which frankly was one of our biggest problems if you go back to the fall. Our building air transfer practice is also helping in terms of cross infections down. We are exchanging air between 6 to 8 times or more, if we can, per hour, which just means that there's a constant source of brand new fresh air in all of our buildings. Now, last week, that was a little bit of a there was a downside to that because the outside air was so cold and our buildings were pretty cold inside too. But we've got a constant amount of fresh air that's coming into our buildings, which is helping with our infections. Finally, our abbreviated hours. We have abbreviated our hours, which help to accommodate our AB scheduling. So the Kansas City region is sustained its decrease in cases, as I'm sure you've read about in the newspaper. And so I believe that we are meeting criteria to do more in terms of service. The one big variable that is still affecting us is the lack of labor. One thing that you might recall is that staff imposed a hiring freeze until we could determine what our revenue condition was going to be. Until very recently, we were down over 100 employees since the start of the pandemic, and we still haven't, hired everybody that we need. In fact, only a fraction of what we needed. It does take it time to do hiring, but we have started posting positions, and we've started hiring some of those positions that we weren't hiring simply because our revenue position is so much better, as we were talking about earlier in the meeting. The current conditions among staff and the community are suggesting that we should decrease our pandemic response level. So consequently, it is my intention to lessen the pandemic response level, allowing the public to start browsing our stacks starting tomorrow. Staff have been working on a plan for this for quite some time in order to make this possible. And I wouldn't be able to make an announcement like this without considerable effort and preparation by all the staff at all levels in our library system. We will retain our abbreviated hours for now due to our to our low labor levels. And we'll continue to follow our health department's directions and recommendations, including mask requirements and maintaining our safe distances. After tomorrow, we'll have nearly every service back at the libraries except for in-person programming and collaboration room use, and in large part because those rooms and space is being used for our returned item quarantine. But we're making a real giant leap effective tomorrow. Wow. And so it's, the numbers are what they are, and we committed to follow the numbers and follow the science. And when the numbers go down, we need to follow the numbers where they lead us. So that's what we're doing. In terms of how we're doing this, Mary and Jim Staley, who Community Relations and Planning, and Mary Altman, our marketing manager, are suggesting what they call a soft rollout. I yield to Mary when it comes to things like messaging. What we're going to do is we will start this service tomorrow. We will start a lot more social media and press release and things like that toward the end of the week, and boosting on social media toward the end of the week. So you'll probably start seeing this in various sources very, very soon, probably not tomorrow, but you'll probably see it toward the end of the week as we start moving toward a new sense of normalcy. So that's the COVID report. Lots there. in terms of what our environment is, but also what our response is. Before I get to my next topic, I just want to pause for a second and see if anybody's got any questions, clarifications. Frankly, I'm feeling good about this. It feels like we're turning a corner.
I'm happy.
Steve, thank you for that report. When do you think the collaboration rooms will be open up for use?
It's going to be a couple of things. I think that was Steve. It's going to be a couple of things that's going to lean on that. Part of it's going to be when we can roll back our quarantine time. And so that's going to be, so that will dictate some of this. And some of it will also be what our health departments are suggesting. I mean, if our health departments are suggesting that people have to set 6 feet apart from one another, our collaboration rooms won't allow more than one person to be in them. And so we would have to make an adjustment accordingly. Not to say we couldn't, but we would have to say, that the collaboration rooms can be open, but you can't collaborate in them, that you can just, only one person in them because you'll be within 6 feet. So some of it will depend still on what our health departments are saying. But we'll continue to monitor, continue to work on it.
Thank you.
Steve,
Great.
go ahead, Steve Rowland.
Joycelyn, I think.
I just said thank you. I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I had a question for you. I think the community is going to be ecstatic that the buildings are open again. How are we going to manage capacity, given the restrictions the differing restrictions in our 3 counties?
Sure. Well, right now, the restrictions are not that different in our 3 counties, which is good. In fact, I do have to commend it to our public health officials is that generally speaking, where there might be minor variances, they're not too far off in general, which has been a really, really good thing. In terms of our staff, there's a couple of things that's happening. Brian is looking at a piece of software that we don't have installed yet, but we will have installed shortly that will sort of give us a running tally of our building load based on our door counters. So you'll just be able to look at a screen and it'll tell you there's 25 people in the building or whatever the situation. We don't have that installed yet, but we will have that installed as soon as we can get it. The second thing is that in terms of the technology, we've been well below our building capacity without any sort of challenge or difficulty at all. Third thing is that, the people like me, the people who have been around for a little while can remember what the impact was, what sort of drove building occupancy historically in libraries before we had in-person programming. In-person programming is a big part of what drove a lot of building capacity. But back when it was just the place where you went in and got a book and left, we rarely had issues with building capacity. We are thinking that's going to be the same situation. We understand that there's pent-up demand and that people are going to want to come to the library. We get that. But even with that, we don't feel like there's going to be 200 people try to get into the North Independence branch, which would put it at its maximum capacity, for example. But the staff is empowered to keep an eye on the capacity, make sure that we're not over. They're empowered to make sure people are staying 6 feet apart, wearing masks, all of those sorts of things. In fact, Dustin just sent out an email reminding people about how to manage such situations. The other thing is that in terms of experience, as I've contacted other libraries across the country that have opened their stacks, it's worked out. In other communities, it's been okay. In a worst case scenario, we would set up an outside queue, but everyone I've talked to that opened their stacks in kind of the same way we did had no need to do that. It just worked out, and I'm hoping that we're going to be just as lucky. So that's not the scientific answer I know that you would normally be expecting from me, Joycelyn, but the experience is suggesting that we're that we're going to be okay. We'll see what happens.
Thank you. It's totally perfect answer. So.
Okay, so next topic, I want to talk to you about a new trial service that we're doing at Mid-Continent. It's called MCPL Wi-Fi to Go. And this is a trial service that we initiated with the 2020 CARES Act funds that we received. And it adds to our previous CARES Act grant to enhance our exterior Wi-Fi service strength at all of our locations. The new service provides customers access to a wireless internet from their home and away from the library property. The purpose of the program, according to the grant, was to focus on community college students. And while we allow anybody to borrow these items, we do put them in branches closer to MCC campuses and focus much of our initial promotion on MCC locations. Holds can be placed on these items and checked out from any branch, but they do route back to their designated branch. A hotspot device can be checked out for 14 days during the trial period. It can be renewed 2 times if there are no pending holds on the device. And if the device is kept for 1 week past the due date, then the individual will be billed for the lost item, and the internet service to the device will be shut off until it's returned to the branch. And so that's always the big answer as to, okay, well, why would I ever have my own home internet if I can just go and check this out from the library and never return it? It's because if you don't return it, then we turn it into a brick and it's useless. So the idea is that this is to help particularly community college students, for people who are retraining in their career, and particularly folks who may not necessarily have, who have had some financial hardships and may not have the internet access that they need in order to do what they need to do to keep their educational attainment going. And so it's trial service. We will keep you up to date on how it's all working, but it was all funded for 1 year through CARES Act funding that we were able to get. And we received a match from Jackson County, from the county of Jackson County, in order to get a few more of those as well.
Hey, Steve, this is Brian. Can I
Brian,
add something real quick?
Please.
We have 350 of these, and we located them across 15 different branches or 10 different branches. I can find out for you. And the other thing is other than the bill, if they don't bring it back, we are not charging fines for these or overdues, because these are people that really need this service and really need this help in their homes. And this is a way for us to provide internet without them having to come into the buildings. So as long as we get the device back, there's no permanent bill, there's no overdue fines, there's none of that kind of stuff. We just want to get the device back. So we're really trying to be thoughtful in our approach on this and really try and help people out, not burden them with bills or fines or those types of things. So just wanted to add that to it also.
Thank you, Brian. Good. The last thing that I have, actually, I've got 2 more topics. One more is the board training and self-evaluation, which I think all of you did receive an email message about this last week. And as I mentioned earlier, that the board often undertakes self-evaluation, but this was going to be a little bit of a different approach to provide sort of a quiz that you would take yourself with some introspection opportunity, but also provide some opportunities for leadership and team building. I took the evaluation and it wasn't at all what I expected it to be. So consequently, I sent out the email message that hopefully you all saw, asking you to hold off on doing that evaluation. I've got a meeting with the trainers tomorrow to talk with them about this, to voice my concern and to see what our next course of action is. So just a little heads up on that. And so with that, last topic as part of the librarian's report is actually the quarterly statistics update. And I think Katina, is on the line and should be able to help us walk through that.
I am here. Can everybody hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So I have a handful of slides to share with you about the October, November, December 2020 stats. So if we can go to the next slide. And hopefully for the sake of our new board members, I will be thorough in my explanations of what we're looking at, but will defer to Michelle or to Ron to open up for any questions after I'm done. Next slide, please. So what I say at the beginning of all of these presentations is, in this current strategic plan, we are focused on, mission fulfillment. We created the strategic plan, recognizing that we would spend most of it in the middle of, in the midst of construction. Obviously, we didn't have a crystal ball to know that we would also be using it in the middle of a pandemic. But again, we're focused on mission fulfillment, and the way that we are measuring that is by keeping track of the number of active customers, our customer satisfaction, and then our customer use of library resources or customer transactions. So those are the three main measures that we are looking at as we go through this strategic plan. Next slide, please. So if we start with active customers, we are also, the sub measures, is I'll make up that word and call it that, are related to market penetration, meaning, how many households within our library district footprint have active card. Card registrations are also important toward our number of active customers. And then customer retention, how many people who get a library card are still using it a year later. So we're going to talk about all of these things on the next slide, please. So this chart it has a lot of information on it. The idea is the measure is on the left. The next slide, the next column then is the numbers for, again, Q2 of fiscal 2021 is October, November, December of 2020. And then that middle slide of numbers, I keep saying slide, the middle column of numbers represents the change from the last quarter, or the change from July, August, September. And then the column on the right represents the change from that same time last year, so October, November, December of 2019. So at the end of December, or at the end of calendar year 2020, we had 246,000 active cardholders, and that was about 6.6% less than the September 30 number, and about 27% less than the December 31 of 2019 number. As a reminder, our strategic plan goal for active cardholders is 320,000. And we'll talk about this later or at another time, but hopefully as we continue to return services to the library, to our customers, we will see this active cardholder number return to numbers, to levels that we had seen about 12 months ago. Our new card registration for this last quarter was about 5,800 new card holders, which is about 33% less than we saw in July, August, September, and about 38% less than December of 2019. Our market penetration, again, the number of households that have active cards is 37% of our households, and that's 2 points less than last quarter, 8 points less than it was in December of 2019. Cardholder retention, again, this is, of people who signed up for a card and are they still using it a year later, is at 36%. So during this quarter, I can say that 36% of the people who signed up for a card in 2019 were still using it by the end of 2020. So that 36% is about 3 points less than it was at the end of September, and then about 5 points less than it was at the end of December. So in other words, 41% of the people who signed up for a card in 2018 were still using it at the end of 2019, if that helps you to think through that. The last two rows represent our student accounts. So we have MOUs, memorandums of understanding, with 16 of our 20 public school districts, to have that the students would have their student ID number be their library account number. So 59% of the student accounts that are out there, and we have about 118,000 student accounts, 59% of them are active, were active at the end of December 2020. And then the next two are not necessarily change numbers, but actual numbers. So that was 63% of the cards were active at the end of September. And then the year before, because we were turning the cards over at the beginning of every school year, prior to this school year. So 100% of the cards were active, as in they were either new or had been used at least once during the previous school year. So again, all of these things work together related to our active customers number. And if we focus specifically on new card registration, if we look at the next slide, This gives you an idea of how the new card registrations look per quarter over the past 3 years. So the thing that I gave a similar presentation in our internal communications meeting, and I pointed out, I said in 2020, or excuse me, in 2019, we were really moving along to get a lot of new people interested and signing up for cards. And so you will see the numbers for 2020 represent when we went from regular service in almost the entirety of the first quarter of 2020 to really doing a lot of marketing and trying to get people to sign up for cards online. That's what you see there in the July through September number for 2020. But again, getting new cardholders does affect our active cardholder number. We need to continue to add new customers as we, are looking at and trying to focus on that active cardholder number. So next slide, please. And then it's pretty busy, but the idea here is we're looking at active households, in other words, market penetration and cardholder retention. And these bars are represent our library compared to other libraries. So the numbers we were talking about before were just comparison amongst ourselves when we're comparing ourselves to other libraries that use Savannah, which is our data visualization platform. In these two charts here, the purple bar, dark blue, however it looks to you, the purple bar represents our library. The green bar represents libraries in a similar budget category to ours. The blue represents ones that are in a similar population category to ours. And then the orange represents all of the libraries on this Savannah platform. So you'll see that even though we have had decreases there in our market penetration, it sort of follows with other libraries. Numbers are similarly decreasing. The number to focus on again, and that comes to, the fewer new cards we add, the less, that sort of would imply that we'd have fewer people that would continue to use their card. So we went from 41, and this is what I mentioned earlier, our cardholder retention in Q4 of 2019, calendar year 2019, was at 41%, and it's down to 36%, again, as of December 2020. So you can see that those increases in Q1 and Q2 of 2020 are related to student accounts. But as we, started the new school year and didn't just, reactivate all of the kids' cards, you can see how that affects our cardholder retention. So these are charts that we get to update quarterly. And again, it's a good representation to help us to be able to see how we compare to our library peers. Next slide, please. So customer satisfaction is another measure that we use. We measure customer satisfaction with our Net Promoter Score survey, which we'll talk about in a second, and also doing post-program surveys. And obviously, most of our post-program surveys have been on our virtual programs over the past several months. So we will talk about that in a second. So if we go to the next slide. So again, the Net Promoter Score, to explain what that is, the question that we ask is, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend that others use Mid-Continent Public Library? Those who rate us a 9 or a 10 are considered promoters. Anyone who rates us a 6 or below are considered detractors. And so the Net Promoter Score is the percent of promoters minus the percent of detractors. That's the number that we use. If we go to the next slide, we will see that when we started our strategic plan, our Net Promoter Score was 91.8. Our goal was to get to 92. Right now, or at least at the end of December, our actual Net Promoter Score was 90.1. And we started a new cycle of Net Promoter Score survey emails last quarter, so that we started a new survey. And so we're up to about 1,400 customers that have responded. And so a Net Promoter Score of 90.1 with only about 1,400 surveys is very good. And that word cloud there on the screen gives you an idea. People see our staff as great. They love the library. They appreciate being able to get their books online. Pandemic has creeped into our word cloud now, of course. But I look at all of the responses to the survey, and really there's it's the number of customers that appreciate what the library is doing, considering what we're going through, far outweighs the ones that use the survey to ask us to, open. When are you going to open? So there's a lot of understanding from our customers, and appreciate being able to, use curbside and the drive up to still get materials to share to use themselves or share with their families. The last bullet point on this slide is that 97% of the customers who have been attending our virtual programs have rated those programs as very good or excellent. So, even though we cannot meet in person, we have expanded the reach of the number of customers that can participate in our programs. There's not the Northland and north of the river, south of the river situation when we have these virtual programs, and I believe that is bearing itself out with their satisfaction with these programs and being able to attend. Next slide, please. So the last section that I talk about on a quarterly basis are our customer transactions. And so again, this is the use of library services. The other things that we're monitoring, which we definitely will keep a more intense eye on now that we are returning browsing, is, we look at the door count, and then we're also monitoring how things are going, after capital improvements at locations, to see if we're returning. And obviously with the pandemic, things are, different, but we are definitely keeping an eye on that. So next slide, please. So this, if you were to go back and look at our strategic plan that we launched in 2018, that image there will be familiar as the tree chart that we created to sort of break down our transactions. But the purpose of this slide is just to let you know that the goal that we've set for fiscal 2021 transactions for that whole 12-month period is to reach 9 million transactions. Even with the pandemic in 1920, we still reached 11.3 million transactions. And so with fewer people being able to come in and use computers, no in-person programming, we felt that we still could reach 9 million transactions in this fiscal year. And again, that's related to branches that had been closed for construction reopening during this fiscal year as well. So that's the goal that we're working toward, and we are about halfway there. So if we go to the next slide. This chart again represents transactions, and it's sort of broken down like that tree chart showed you on the previous slide. We had 1.6 million items circulated, either physical or digital circ, in October, November, December 2020. That's about 1.6% less than last quarter, and down about 25% over the previous fiscal year, or previous quarter in 2019. The use of virtual resources was up about 9.3% from last quarter, down about 17% from the year before. Internet accesses is down about 24% from the previous quarter, but in the previous quarter we were fully allowing people to come in and use computers, and so that follows that we had rolled that back toward the end of November in 2020. That 51,000 internet accesses is about 69% less than the previous year. Program attendance, obviously that's based solely on virtual programs, and it's down about 5% from the previous quarter, but almost 100%, 93% from the year before. And then use of physical resources, that's related specifically to pretty much just to reference questions. And so we had a lot of branches closed in November, and so that number being down about 35% from the previous quarter rings true. So the interesting thing is that 2.3 million transactions is only about 2,200 transactions more than the previous quarter. So that's why that 0.1% change from the previous quarter. But it's down about 28% from the year before. And if we go to the last slide that I have, this is the trends of those transactions. Transactions by quarter are generally about the same. And so you can see how things changed in 2020, and you can see how July, September, October of 2020 is very similar to October, November, December. So that is the completion of my report.
Thank you, Katina. I mean, one thing that I think is really important is that as an organization, we did move away from just counting hash marks a long time ago because because sometimes that'll incentivize the wrong behavior. Sometimes it doesn't really capture the true impact that you have in a community. And so if you go back and you look at things like customer satisfaction and market penetration, and you can see that we are making an impact, even if we're not able to send people home with 50 books in their hands, we're still making an impact. When you look at the amount of students that are accessing accounts, I mean, those numbers are substantial. When you think about the 3.5 million items that the digital downloads, and in fact, I spoke with two of our representatives from Jefferson City yesterday, both of which, one of which confessed to me that he hadn't physically been in one of our buildings for 3 years, but said that he logs on every week to download audiobooks for his drive to and from Jefferson City. And so, using us in different ways, different people using us in different ways. And I think you can still see that. The word cloud is another thing that's really important to take a look at. That's not something that Katina and Mary just said and picked words to make an interesting piece of art. That actually are the most common words that we see in our surveys, in our customer surveys coming back. And you can see the types of things that people are talking about and the words that come up most frequently. And they're the right types of words that you'd want to see come back most frequently. So, all things being equal, am I thrilled with these numbers? No, I'm not thrilled with these numbers. I wish that we had the same sort of numbers that we had 2 years ago. But I also feel like we are in a position that very strong foundation from which to build. And we're going to be able to do that, start doing that real soon. So that concludes staff's reports, and certainly entertain any additional questions if people have.
Ron, this is Steve Rowland. Could I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve. I don't think it picked it. He said yes.
Okay. Are we planning an aggressive PR rollout when things are starting to ease up a little bit, so that people know we're open for business? I mean, it's one thing to send out a press release, but what can we do aggressively, proactively to let all those people who've relied on us and grown with us over the years to know that your library's back? What can we do?
Yeah, it's a good question. And certainly, of course, as given my position, I'm always going to push back, saying we never went away. And so you can't say that we're back if we never went away. But clearly understand what you mean. Jim, are you on the line? Would you be interested in taking a first swing at that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually already starting to work on basically going back through. Obviously we'll do PR, and that's a big piece of this. It'll be exciting to have some really exciting things to pitch again. We haven't had necessarily a lot of good news to pitch in a while, but we're going to be able to. But the other piece to that is, we still have marketing dollars from the last year, and a lot of those dollars we've been conserving for this point. So you can expect us to go back and see a lot of the things that you would have seen us do previously. A lot of billboard, some radio, a little bit of potentially a little bit of radio as well. And then beyond that, we have so much more we can do now in communication just within our system. Our email system has become pretty robust over the last few years. So we will be, sending multiple emails to customers. In some cases, emails that are able to be a little more specific about services they might be interested in. So we'll be able to do that. We'll be doing a lot through social media, of course. And then pushes out at the branches as well, though we'll certainly give them a little time before we try to do any of that to make sure they're up and running in good shape.
I was, I didn't go to a whole lot of them, but I went to several open houses when we opened up new buildings or renovated buildings. And I was always impressed with the numbers of people, but also the people who came who felt like this was kind of their place, their library. They owned it. I'm wondering if having another round of open houses to kind of, I don't know, reintroduce, and I get what you're saying, Steve, that we never closed down. I get that. But, we have had some reductions in numbers. So somehow we need to make it very clear to people that we're back, and we're back in full 100% ready to go. And it sounds like Jim's working on that, and I appreciate that. But we have a good product, and we need to advertise it.
I really like the recommendation, Steve. And I know one thing that I talked with Jim and Richie and several folks with about was the idea that, we never had a dedication of the East Lee Summit branch because we couldn't. We never had a dedication of the Withers branch because we couldn't. And so we have opportunities that are sort of stacked up that allow us a natural opportunity for us to have dedications of these brand new locations, as well as the rededications of places like Blue Springs North and South Independence and Parkville. So, I mean, there's a lot of what we've been talking about doing is possibly doing first birthday celebrations on a lot of those to kind of tie them to something and to spread them out a little bit throughout the year. The other thing that I'd been talking with Jake about was groundbreakings. We've got a couple of groundbreakings coming up, and we're trying to figure out, well, what the heck are we going to do with a groundbreaking? Because certainly the message doesn't look right if we're going to have a groundbreaking to build a new building when we're not letting people in our existing buildings. Well, that's about to change. And so if that's changing, then we're going to have some opportunities for groundbreakings, again, which is something that gets the public excited. It's a natural news event, which would allow us to talk about all kinds of things, not just the groundbreaking of, like, for example, Green Hills is the one I'm thinking about most specifically, but also, when we got people out there, we could be talking about all kinds of things that we're doing. And yeah, open houses. We did a whole series of open houses all on the library's birthday, back on our 50th birthday. And there might be an opportunity for us to do, depending upon what the pandemic is looking like, we might be able to do a series of open houses late spring or something like that to coordinate or correlate with the summer reading program and get everybody sort of thinking about us again. So I think your idea of really boosting this is a good one, Steve, and thank you for making that suggestion.
This is Lori Lamagna, and I just had another suggestion. So I know you're wanting to do a soft opening, and a way that might be to do like some of the soft openings is if the library had something that was shareable, like, hey, our interiors are open, come shop for books, sharing it on some of the like swap Facebook pages, that kind of gets to a lot of the people that really need the services of the library, such as, printing services or, some of those things. And I'm not sure, like bookshelf, I know you said some things are going to be available, but maybe if it clearly listed it and then all of us just shared that, in some of the Facebook groups that we belong to, that would really get the word out to people to let them know, because I know a lot of people have said, oh, I miss the library, I miss going in, I miss those things. So that's just an idea I had.
Thank you, Lori.
I agree with Lori that getting the word out is going to be important because people are waiting for it to open. I don't think it's going to take long for people to learn that the libraries are open. But I think if we as board members share it to the groups that we belong to who are interested in the library. When the library first started shutting down, I started sharing on a couple of local pages here in Lee Summit about what the library offers. Now I don't even have to do that. Somebody asks, how can I get this? And somebody else jumps ahead of me and answers the question. So I think that kind of organic spread is just as important as a big PR push from the library itself. And as board members, it is part of our role to keep our communities informed about what's going on with the library.
I know when we did Prop L, Steve went out and did a lot of Chamber of Commerce and Rotary Club visits. We did a lot of radio interviews, and I would consider some of those again to say we're open, and maybe even do them in collaboration with some of our partners at the Johnson County Library, the Kansas City Library, and just kind of make a push in general that libraries are ready to go. And here are all the things all three or all four library districts in the region are doing to serve the community.
I appreciate that, and I think we'll take you all up on that if you're willing to do it. I'm sure Jim is making good notes, and he'll be able to put together a plan and share that with everybody, and as well as share things like possibly even things you might want to post on your social media, or sort of talking points. I'm sure we could put, Jim, you could put something like that together that we could share, couldn't you?
Yeah, we will as we get our social post finalized. One of the things we can do is probably send through Teresa, would be my guess.
Right.
We can be sure and get some of those elements out to the entire board so that you all can share as well. And we certainly appreciate you all doing that. It is, by virtue of your positions, you tend to have big networks, and we appreciate your willingness to share those networks to make, to help promote the library.
May I make another suggestion? My kids are in the North Kansas City School District, and we get a weekly newsletter, and it usually comes out on Wednesday, so we probably wouldn't be able to make tomorrow's. But the school district is constantly looking for things to put in there. And then also we can get free publicity because the news is kind of looking for positive things right now. And so Channel 41, Channel 4, they would all be, I think, very excited to hear that the libraries are open. And I think that we could even get some great publicity on some of the new buildings and new openings, and really get a lot of free publicity from them.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, my thoughts are that I think we got absolutely wonderful coverage. I generally watch Channel 4, but the young man that was our MC for the Legacy Luncheon the last time, and
Matt Stewart. Matt is almost an employee of the library.
Absolutely, and they're so supportive, and I think to have them, the coverage is quite extensive, and I hope it's for free.
Yeah,
and it's, of course, they're looking for, as you mentioned, positive, warm, inviting approaches. And another thing that struck me, and I think this is just so much in the back of our brains, is that I've noticed on North Oak, on I-29 and the Bond Bridge, we have the old-fashioned billboards. And I was particularly struck about a month ago by one of ours on, I think it was the Bond Bridge. It was extremely well done by the staff who composed or designed that. And that may be something that can be modified. It's just a short snippet when we have the electronic signs or whatever they are, but they were very, very effective and certainly not disruptive to the traffic, but got the word out to lots of folks who are stalled on the bridges. Any more comments? So to new business?
Yeah, but we'll go right into that. But the thing thank you so much. Thank you for your feedback and your input. Very, very, very helpful tonight. Really like that. So first item of new business, reciprocal lending agreement. The issue over time, MCPL has entered into separate reciprocal borrowing agreements with the Kansas City Public Library, North Kansas City Public Library, Ray County Library, Rolling Hills Consolidated Library, and last month, Henry County Library. MCPL extends reciprocal borrowing to library districts and their customers if they share a boundary with MCPL and the other library is a full member of the Mid-America Library Alliance. In reviewing our policies and procedures, staff discovered that it has been our practice to extend reciprocal borrowing to St. Joseph Public Library. Although St. Joseph Public Library is a MALA member, a member of the Mid-America Library Alliance, it does not share a boundary with MCPL. Staff approached the St. Joseph Public Library about entering into a separate reciprocal borrowing agreement based on the Rolling Hills Agreement. The St. Joseph Public Library Board will take up this agreement at their February meeting, which I think is tomorrow. Staff recommends approval of the reciprocal lending agreement that was in board docs. The strategic value is service. The library believes that customer should be at the center of all that we do.
What about Johnson County and Wyandotte County?
Both Johnson County and Wyandotte County directly border us, and so it meets the other criteria that we have, that if a library shares a boundary with us and is a member of the Mid-America Library Alliance, then we automatically extend reciprocity without a separate agreement. And so we have the same arrangement with them.
Thank you. I move approval of this agreement. This Steve Rowling.
Second?
This is Joyce on a second.
Was there a second?
Yeah, Joycelyn seconded.
Any discussion? I have one question, or two questions. Number one, is this essentially the model that's used for the other library districts?
Essentially.
Okay.
I mean, devil's in the details lots of times.
But the next question is our council and representative from the other districts drafted this or negotiated it?
The original version, as I mentioned in the recap, that this is based on an agreement that we did in 2011, I believe it was, with Rolling. Yeah, February of 2011. No, I'm sorry. That's not right. It's based on the agreement that we did with Rolling Hills Library, which we did that back when I was North Regional Manager, which would have been right around the year 2000. And when we did that, Phil actually helped us.
Okay, there's no glitches or that have been in the implementation of the agreement?
No.
Okay.
No, it's been great now. And in terms of review on their side, I'm sure that they review with their counsel, but Phil actually helped us draft this.
Okay, good.
We did it originally. So.
Good.
Great.
I had a question, Steve.
Yes.
As we're currently able to search both Kansas City Public Library and Johnson County Library from the all at once, are we looking in the possibility in the future of extending that to our other reciprocal branches?
Oh, in terms of the discovery layer, the catalog, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I know that's a more difficult thing to do than an agreement to extend membership.
Right. Not at this point. I mean, because a lot of our other neighbors aren't, they don't have the revenue and funding stream that our more suburban neighbors have. And it's a little bit costly for them to be able to join on to that. But doesn't mean we wouldn't do it if it was cost effective to do so.
Any other discussion, questions? Okay, hearing none, we have this resolution was moved and seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? And any abstaining from vote? We're carried.
Okay, thank you. And this should be the last reciprocal borrowing agreement that we look at for quite some time. We don't have any other ones hanging out there. So the next one was the easement for Woodneath. And the issue here is part of our construction, the new Woodneath Library Center auditorium. The previous easement for the stormwater BMP detention basins need to be abandoned, and a new permanent easement needs to be ceded to the city of Kansas City. The new easement is configured differently and is actually marginally smaller than the current one, so we'll actually get back a little bit more of our land. It has been the practice of staff to grant temporary easements and for the board to grant permanent easements. Staff recommends approval of the new BMP easement to the city of Kansas City on the MCPL Woodneath property. The values of this is primarily ministerial, but also stewardship. The library believes the public and private dollars entrusted to us must be effectively and efficiently used to improve our community.
Any questions, discussion?
Well, yeah.
I guess I have kind of the same two questions. I'm assuming that Phil and the counterpart with the city had a chance to review this. And secondly, is this always something that if we don't do it, we don't get the go-ahead from the city?
Yeah, they won't give us an
So
occupancy.
basically, it's we got to do it.
At some point, they won't, when it gets time to get our occupancy, they won't give us the occupancy.
Gotcha, okay. So,
We need a motion and second.
okay,
Meyer, I move approval.
Thank you, Brent.
Michael on second.
Okay.
okay, we had a Motion to proceed and seconded. All in favor, please signify by aye.
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 Any opposed,
Aye.
nay? I'm sorry, any opposed, nay? None. Any abstaining from voting? The motion carries.
Okay, next up is a banking resolution. So Mid-Continent Public Library was notified that the library was named as the beneficiary of an estate gift for the Parkville branch. The funds are being held in a retirement account managed by Fidelity Investments. After extensive conversation with Fidelity Investments, it appears that the only way for us to receive the gift is for MCPL to open an account with Fidelity Investments so the funds can be transferred there. Once transferred to the Fidelity account controlled by MCPL, staff will then transfer those funds from Fidelity to one of our accounts at Central Bank or another existing traditional MCPL bank account. And then finally, MCPL staff will close that account with Fidelity. It's just the process. It appears to be the only process for us to receive our gift is to jump through these hoops. Staff and should clarify that according to our policies, that the board does generally have to approve when we open new banking accounts, financial accounts. So staff recommends a resolution to adopt the establishment of a maintenance and trading accounts resolution with Fidelity Investments, specifically for the purpose of receiving the proceeds of a specific estate gift. Once received, staff will close the account with Fidelity Investments. Values, of course, is stewardship. The library believes that the public and private dollars entrusted to us must be used effectively and efficiently to improve our community.
Good, thank you. Any questions, comments, discussion? Just one question I have. This is I'm assuming a donor-directed grant.
Yeah.
And is it any way to content or anything, collection, or just kind of to the branch?
Diana, are you still on the line? Can you speak
Yeah.
to a little bit more about donor intent?
Yeah, so I've spoken with the donor's brother who lives in Chicago, and really he did not indicate that she had specific requirements for the gift other than it is for the Parkville branch. So once we are able to complete the paperwork with Fidelity, they may have a little bit more information that they haven't yet disclosed. But to our knowledge so far, there isn't specific restrictions on the gift other than it is meant for the Parkville branch.
Great. So you're not restricted then, and then you just add it to the gifts and grants listing.
Yes, that's likely what we will do. Stephen
Perfect.
Kwan and I will
Wonderful.
discuss that. Yeah, and then we'll report on amount because we also don't know amount yet.
Okay, great. Okay, do we have a motion to proceed with opening the Fidelity account?
And this
Anybody?
Steve, so moved. This is Steve Rowling.
Thank you, Steve. Second? Anybody?
Second, this is Joycelyn.
Thank you, Joyce. And we have it's been moved and seconded that we open the Fidelity account. All in favor signify by aye, please.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Opposed, nay? None. Any abstaining? It's carried.
Thank you. And I'm sure we'll have a lot more information about that in the near future. As soon as we know that, we will share that. So,
And like 2 matters left. Any trustee comments and then adjournment? No announcements.
Got announcements.
Announcements, yeah.
yeah, actually, just a couple of announcements. As Brent has mentioned, building committee is coming up on Thursday. And then board meeting on the 16th, March the 16th. And that's essentially all that I know. And of course, the really big announcement tomorrow, but we'll get you more information on how you can help us boost that information. So,
Fantastic. Thank you. Sure, of course.
so yeah, now I think we're, Teresa, any other announcements that you?
No. None that no.
Okay.
Trustees' comments?
I'd just like to compliment staff on management of the library through COVID. This is an unprecedented time, and to be able to continue services, some of the very essential services to people in great need has been commendable. And I'd just like to just take a moment to recognize that. Thank you.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah, this is Michael. I would agree with that. And great job, staff and everybody during this time. So thank you so much.
We will make sure those, because I know the way we're structured, when you talk to staff, you're talking to me, but you're not really talking to me. You're talking to 730 other people. And we'll make sure that that is passed on to them as well. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, why don't we as a board kind of offer a resolution so Steve would have something to actually share with them? A resolution of praise for their good work during the last COVID 6 months or so, 8 months. I don't know. Maybe Jim or somebody else can word it, but I think what Michael said is we need to go on record saying we appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, and I would add too that not only to keep the library working, but to keep the communities healthy as well. Because I know that our staff had to come with a commitment to distance, to masks, to do all the protocols in the proper way so that we can have these 0 numbers in February. And that's extraordinary. And yes, that does go down to every single employee.
So if you're in agreement, I offer a motion that we authorize the board chair to work with Steve and his staff to draft the resolution complimenting the staff for job well done during the COVID period, and we'll leave it up to Michelle and Steve to work out the wording. And our job today is to pass a resolution supporting that wording.
Yeah, I second that.
I'm not sure if we can.
It's okay.
Okay.
Okay, we've had a resolution and a second that the board authorized our librarian and chief executive officer to extend the board's appreciation for the efforts of the staff, especially throughout the COVID pandemic. All in favor, please signify by aye.
Mr. Chairman, if I hate to interrupt here. This is Phil.
Yeah, Phil.
It's a wonderful, I approve very much of the spirit of it, but we have sunshine law issues. It's not on the agenda. And so what I would suggest is that an appropriate motion be drafted and brought to the board as an action item on the agenda for next month.
Thank you.
Do we really need to even go through all this for us to just send out you guys are doing a great job letter?
No, you don't. You can just send out a letter saying that the board wants to express its appreciation, but not as a motion approving it. If you want to do that formality, then we have to follow the Sunshine Act.
So what I'm hearing is, I'm hearing a consensus amongst the board, and I'm hearing some direction. And I think that Michelle and I can work based on that direction to send out an appropriate communication, if that is okay with everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other trustee comments? Hearing none, it is 5:33. Do we have any motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thunderously said. And we do or do not need a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get second.
Second and vote.
Yeah, who said it?
So seconded.
I think
Thank you,
both
Michael.
Michelle and I said it at the same time, I think. So.
Seconded by all 12.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
To vote, hit the red button.
Yeah.